March 2nd. I figured that everybody's in because you know what? I've got experience. I've got experience now.
There is a lot of science behind that.
But you know what?
My friends, sit down. Anybody loud voice? Anybody want to yell at people?
I'll go around. I'll make the rounds.
If you're talking to Stephen King loudly, please find a seat.
Thank you.
Come on in, look at this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, y'all. We're on the internet. You're not. No, you're not on. It's great. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Special thanks to Neil, who got a couple of Manhattans in me at Spirit Hound and talked me into this. I mean, I talked myself into it too, but Neil contributed. And Chris and Sarah, thank you for hosting. Thanks for building a beautiful space in Lyons.
Yes.
Well done. We'll start with the disclosures. I haven't done this before. They haven't done this before. We don't really know what we're doing. So we're going to sit up here for a little while. We sent around a survey amongst all the business owners that asked some questions. I had some one-on-one conversations with various folks about what's going on in our community, what we're worried about, what we're thinking about, what we're hopeful about, lots of random things. I shared some of the hot topics and headlines of that with all the candidates that are running and let them think their own thoughts on that. And we're going to sit up here and talk about stuff. I have a rough framework for some questions and some things to ask, but we're going to see where the conversation goes. I don't have a time limit. I certainly don't have rules. Yeah, we'll get into what we get into. I hope it's valuable. Our goal is as much to educate the public on the things that the businesses are dealing with, that we're concerned about, where we're headed, what we see as the state of the universe. Educate the candidates a little bit on what we're thinking about, and then also hear from them, learn from them, experience all things together. So thanks for being here. We'll have some fun. Figured the best thing to do is start by letting our candidates introduce themselves a little bit. We're starting this evening with Tanya and Doug and Amy, who's able to join us tonight. We have a bunch of other candidates here this evening.
Round two.
She's on round 2, dude. She gets the preview on how stressful and difficult this is before we go for round 2. So yeah, Tanya, who are you? Why are you running? What's your deal?
Well, I'm going to stand if that's okay so I can see you all. I'm so glad to see such a good turnout. Can everybody hear me back there? Okay, great. I'm just going to speak loudly like I'm a teacher, for example. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tanya Dante. I'm originally from Canada. I immigrated to the US about 15 years ago. I've been on the board of trustees as long as I've been an American citizen, which has been just over 4 years. I have been a resident of Lyons for 14 years. I'm a mother of 3 children. One of them works at the market. 2 of them were on dance team at Miami. I am currently serving as a guest teacher, so I've gone back to my original career, which was always a teacher, mostly French actually, and English in Canada, but here I'm teaching mostly at Lyons Elementary School as a guest teacher. I am a huge supporter of Lyons businesses, especially because they're independently owned, and especially because this is a small town. Before I was a trustee here in Lyons, I was a trustee in a little town in France. And I have to tell you, there are about 95,000 small towns and villages in France. And if it weren't for the community supporting those small businesses, those villages would not exist. So I believe firmly that we need to support our businesses if we want to keep our community alive. It really is central to our lifeline. I have, like I mentioned, I've served 4 years on the board of trustees. I have served 5 years on the Lyons Elementary School PTO when I first arrived, 5 years on the LEAF advisory board, and I worked with LCF for about 2.5 years during COVID. I was, as a member of the board of trustees, I served as liaison to the Economic Vitality Commission, my first term. I also served as liaison, well, a de facto liaison to the Chamber of Commerce because it wasn't actually an official commission of the board. I actually asked the Board of Trustees to add a budget line item so that we could become one of the highest paying members of the Chamber of Commerce for 2 years in a row, I believe, until its dissolution last year. And I don't know if many of you know this, but you can actually become an individual member. So I was also an individual member of that. Is this the time for me to speak about my vision or no?
Nope.
Okay, welcome back. That's
Let you off the hook. Go for it, yeah.
I won't stand up unless you need to see me. My name is Douglas Matthews. I've lived here in Lyons for a little over 25 years. Lori and I moved here from sort of circling the country from Texas to California to Washington and ended up here. And growing up, I spent a lot of time in Colorado. All of our family vacations were in Colorado. So I knew when we moved here, I wanted to live somewhere that I woke up in the morning and knew it was Colorado. A lot of the places east of where we are don't feel that way, and so this is what we call home. We raised our 2 daughters here. Both went through the school system here and went to college here in Colorado. One lives, Kelsey lives in Longmont, where she just had a baby about a year ago, and is a school teacher there. My other daughter, Ryan, who was in Eric's class, I think, I believe, or right around there, lives over and does human resource activity. We moved to Colorado for me to take a job at Case Logic up in Longmont. So a Colorado-built entrepreneur company that became quite large through the years. And I did a number of things with that business, but primarily outside of the U.S. So for the first 18 or so years that we lived here in Colorado, I mostly lived in airports and hotels throughout Asia and Europe and various places. When I was able to escape the corporate world, I took on a role of business turnaround manager. So really companies that had been built from scratch, mostly private companies, and they had sort of outgrown their original founders. And my job is to help them figure out how to stabilize the business, understand what's going on in the marketplace, and move on. Since then, I've started a business brokerage firm, and we work with small businesses every day of the week, and helping them get their business ready to sell, helping them buy a new business, helping them sell their business after they built it. So hopefully it brings some insight to a lot of the folks in this room in particular that are interested about the business. That's pretty much who I am and why I'm here.
Great. Yeah, they work. Just flip that little switch on it.
Yeah, I might go ahead and use the mic. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Schwartz. I moved to Lyons in 2007 with my ex-husband. We had been living in Los Angeles, and we knew it was time to leave and find a place where we wanted to raise a family. And Adam was and is a big kayaker. So we drove a camper from Los Angeles to Boston and back, and we stopped in Lyons both weekends. And we stayed in what's now Laverne Johnson Park, and we moved and bought a house right next to the October Bowl, what used to be the October Bowl before the flood. We've raised our son. AJ is 17, a junior at the high school. Thank you for letting me slide in this evening because he's the lead in the play, and tomorrow night is opening night. So thanks everyone for letting me readjust. I have a lot of experience in education. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But Montessori educators say that the environment is the second teacher in the classroom. And in so many ways, I feel Lyons as a town has been that community to support the growth of AJ and many of the kids in this community. So the business community is important. It's a lot of people who live in places that don't feel safe to let their kid just ride their bike up to town and get a sandwich. And that independence is really important for our kids. So, and I think a thriving community is very much dependent on the economic development and small business community in our town. I currently work for a really big home builder in Colorado, Oakwood Homes. My title is Vice President of Social Responsibility and Community Partnerships. I've been in this role for 2 years. Before that, I ran our educational foundation. And so every closing we have, Oakwood makes a contribution to the nonprofit, and we reinvest those dollars in new school development. So currently, I'm using that same skill set, but helping the home builder develop public-private partnerships to deepen affordability and bring kind of the starter home back to the market so people can spend 30% or less on their overall housing needs. So that's been really exciting. When Adam and I first moved to Lyons, we were like, how are we going to meet friends? So we immediately started volunteering for what was the Lyons Outdoor Games. And I think we did that for 3 or 4 years. We helped develop the dirt jump park and all of those things. That was a really good time. After the flood, I used the educational work that I have and experience that I have and relationships I have in philanthropy to start the Lyons Valley Preschool with 2 other co-founders. And I've been on the Planning and Community Development Committee for about 2.5 years and chairing the past year. So I have my master's in social research methodology from UCLA and my doctorate in education leadership and policy studies from University of Denver. So when I think about leadership, evidence and kind of research is really important to me, and I bring a critical eye to what evidence we're looking at when making high-stakes decisions. So, all right. Thanks
Cool.
for
I realized as they were all introducing themselves, I didn't introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Eric. I am one of the co-founders of Main Stage Brewing. We opened about 5 years ago in Lyons, and we're a stalwart business. I myself moved to Lyons in 1994, I think. You'd have to ask my parents. They're around somewhere. I'm well schooled in Lyons politics from both my parents' passionate participation in many, many boards and commissions for the last 20 or 30 years. Also came up at Planet Bluegrass underneath Craig, so I've got a different perspective on that side of things from time to time too. But I've definitely been around and seen some things and just love this town. Like many, many of the business owners in Lyons, I can't vote here. I live in Longmont. I own property on Main Street, but like a bunch of us that live in Apple Valley or Hygiene or just outside of town, we don't have a voice in the political process unless we decide to shout. We shouted a little bit this summer about various noise ordinance things. We shouted about historical things. We've shouted about a lot of things. But this spring, we decided it was probably time to get proactive and involve ourselves in the electoral process in the best way that we could and speak about what's up with us. So as I mentioned, we circulated a survey about what's going on in our town. And I asked a bunch of questions of the local business owners. How do you feel things are going? What are your challenges? What are you hopeful about? How do you feel on some specific topics? So we're going to dive into some of that. But kind of where I wanted to start was almost universally across the business community right now, there's a lot of, and I'm putting some of my own words on this, but fear, uncertainty, trepidation about our local governmental politics. I think this is learned behavior, is my analysis on it. Just in the last year, between historical preservation stuff, wastewater issues, and noise ordinance stuff, depending on what your business is, you had full-on existential threats thrown at your business. Now, a lot of these were handled rationally, but they came at us last minute. They came at us seemingly out of nowhere. And those things are business killers if they're not handled right. They're business winners if they're handled great. Goes both ways. So as you guys approach jumping on the board as you campaign, how do we do that better? How do we not operate from a place of fear? How do we work together better between the government and the business community? How do we not get surprised? Have at it. I mean, this is, yeah. Talk to each other too, as much as you talk to us. Like, yeah, sure.
Is this okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I firmly believe that together we can do better. And I also believe that as a small community, we all know each other in here. We're all friends and neighbors. And this is what I love about living in a small town like Lyons. Sorry?
Yeah. No, I'll just take it.
Oh, just use one.
Yeah.
All right. And so I feel like if we can't get together and have these conversations like we are tonight, then what's the point of living in a small town like Lyons? You know, there's 2,200 of us. And we're all pretty reasonable people. We're all pretty friendly. We all came to live here for basically the same reasons. I mean, we have so much more in common than we don't have in common. And to be honest, I think it's a matter of sitting down. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think it's really coming together like this, and maybe this is a model for the future. But, you know, I look at our strategic plan the Main Street Program Strategic Plan for 2024 and 2027. And one of the strategies on this plan is to enhance local and regional collaboration to promote the Lyons local business district and increase our impact. And I think that can start with quarterly meetings with trustees and staff and some, business leaders.
Yeah.
So we do have a commission, by the way, called the Economic Vitality Commission. I'm so happy to see that 3 of the commissioners are business owners. And that is an advisory board to the Board of Trustees, which is there to help us develop new business and strengthen and support existing businesses. But you can tell that's a small representation for the entire business community. So I feel like if we could move to like a quarterly format where we have like a task force focused on these issues, then we can get ahead of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer, and I want to keep hearing, but you say there's 2,200 of us. I'm not in that 2,200. That count doesn't include a whole bunch of folks like me. It doesn't include my staff. It doesn't include a whole bunch of the other business owners, their teams, their contractors. The problem and the issue is larger than 2,200. And that's kind of the core of what I'm getting at is how do we involve, let's hear from Doug, just how do we involve all of us on that?
Right. So that's where I was referring to the business leaders to join us at these quarterly meetings with trustees and town staff so that we could hear their voice.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. That was great. I'll just sort of add to that and echo it a little bit, but it's one of those situations, I think, when you know better, you do better. And I've heard a number of stories, actually a couple just in the recent weeks, where a story about a business owner who was really having a hard time getting something built on their property. And it doesn't matter what the case was. And a project that should have been really very simple took a very long time. And there was a lot of drama to it. I heard from Chris earlier this evening about just the struggles and the times that it took. And I think we've shown as a town government, that when we learn about these things have improved. So that original case where the permitting for a building was really challenging, I think after the fact, there was an opportunity to improve some of that and the responsiveness. And I think especially the latest board and the mayor have done a great job of trying to be proactive and get ahead of it, but we're not there yet. You mentioned surprise, that things come out of the blue. That's sort of the last thing that we would like to happen, I think, as a town or as a town government. And it's not just on the business side, it is very much on the residential citizen side as well. It's a tricky one to manage. The staff is running, it's a relatively small, tight staff doing a lot of things and trying to get information together. And I think what happens sometimes, they get ahead of the communication, whether it's to the board or to the business community. And I think if we can sort of build on kind of what Tommy was saying of having a way that we're listening much better up front, that would be a big step, right? When there's a particular issue, whether it's historic preservation or whether it's various health and safety issues, we should be talking to the businesses before we even begin to contemplate a course of action. So that's a big part of where I think we should go with this project.
Yeah.
All right. So just building on some of the experience I had with my dissertation work, I think a lot about whose voices are loudest and whose are quieter or not there. And particularly when making high stakes decisions. And so, Eric, when you just introduced yourself as a business owner, but someone who can't vote, there were probably at least 3 or 4 other folks who I met before we started who introduced themselves in that same way. I think, I would invite you to try to think about a different way. While you're, doing these forums are great, I think we need sustainable systems and structures where the business community voice is constant and not dependent on whoever is on the board and has the time or passion to direct the staff to organize a forum and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% correct. We're operating at 70 hours a week on a good week for some of us. So when we get an email or we see a notice that something's going on, we're happy to come and speak up and get involved. But there needs, at least from my point of view, to be some element of proactive outreach, proactive planning. And the town board is the boss. Even Victoria said tonight, I got to come meet my new bosses. So town board's the boss. Literally, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? Practically.
Yeah, I'll just say two things and then
Yeah.
pass it down, but I think bringing back the chamber to be a non-political, apolitical voice, collective voice is a great way to start. To bring policy ideas to the Economic Vitality Commission to kind of vet and bring up to the Board of Trustees.
And I'll just add, and then I'll pass it on. So your original point, this shouldn't require you to have to yell, right?
Yeah.
To get people's attention. And so that's the nut to be cracked with this. And there's not one solution to any particular topic. And, you know, proactive work with the businesses is very, very important, but it's not going to work in every situation. Sometimes things just come up. And it really requires the board and the staff to focus on what I've seen in so many organizations is a failure to acknowledge the law of unintended consequences, where we're trying to solve a problem. Whether it's, and I'll just use historic preservation because that's an interesting and easy one to recognize and has a big impact. I don't think there's anybody that would say that's a bad thing to try to do, is preserve the style and the look and the feel of the town. But sometimes when you make rules that you think are going to protect it, it has all these other consequences. It raises the price of what it costs to run a business. It makes it harder for a business to grow or change or modify their building. And so we really have to be sensitive to the businesses about anything we're doing that's causing that business to struggle with higher costs or higher rules or higher regulations, to really understand the consequences of the actions.
Thank you for that. Amy, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up the chamber. I agree that ideally we would have a really strong chamber and a really strong EDC, and they would work collaboratively together. And I'd like to think that with business owners on the EDC, and I can think of 3 or 4 of them currently, I would like to think that they are able to speak to other business owners as well, because the EBC is the advisory board who, brings back ideas to the Board of Trustees. That is our referral agency on how ways to develop new business, strengthen and support existing businesses, etc. And so I think that commission is really vital to being that intermediary as well.
That makes sense.
Between other businesses and, basically they're representing the businesses, especially if you don't have a chamber. Their role is even more important.
So I'll use this as a segue as we shift into a little bit of governance stuff, but one of the most pragmatic things that I think we could do, currently when a board agenda is set, it's sent on a Friday afternoon, the meeting's on Monday, and for the grace of God or 1 or 2 of the board members who read it and send an email on Friday afternoon, sometimes we find out what's going on Monday night. This doesn't seem practical to me. Can we put an extra week in there? There's some basic governance things that I think would really help a bunch of us in just understanding what's going on at the town, give us time to react, respond, provide some input, meet with our officials, et cetera, that are just very, very practical. The changes that I think a lot of us are looking for are minute in a big way. They're easy. These are simple, low-lift things that make a huge difference. So as we work through a lot of these questions that I've got coming up, because some of them are getting a little stickier, that's where my head's at. That's where a bunch of people's head's at. We're all business owners. We signed up for hard. We don't do this because it's fun or because it's particularly profitable. We just want it not to get harder. That's really what we're looking for. And if there's a way to make it a tiny bit easier, my God, it's amazing. Thank you so much. One of the ways we can make things easier, and I think there's a few people in this room who've built things recently or are trying to build things will appreciate this, is fixing our development process. The general sense is, from folks who have tried to build things in Lyons, myself included, is that the development process is particularly unpredictable. You can submit all the plans, all the drawings, all the things that are asked for and get a set of answers. Then you move to the next step. Then you get a different set of answers and go back to the first step, but kind of different. Then you go to the third step, then you go back to the second step. Then you go to step X, or it has some symbol that you didn't even know about. And you end up trying to build something. There's a current project that's already at $100,000 in permit fees with the town of Lyons. And a lot of that is review. A lot of that is people that work for the town going back and doing things 2 or 3 times when we're in a budget crunch. I have some thoughts on this, and I'd be happy to share them, but I would love to hear from you on what kind of commitments and how far you'd be willing to go on establishing a development process that can get businesses one set of answers and then stick to it so that they can then budget, borrow, build, and then give back to the town in sales tax, because that's our purpose. That's how this economy is supposed to work. This is tricky and it's fraught, but it's a huge issue. It's why we have 2 open holes in the ground. And Bart and Sarah are doing a great job filling in one of them, but at the moment, it's still flat land, so I'm counting it. It's tricky.
Can I go back one step to your communications issue with the agenda?
If it's like a yes or a no, but we're pressed for time, so.
I hear that, but a couple of things. First, I wanted to correct that the agenda comes out on Thursdays. And second, I would like to know or investigate further as to whether we can actually sign up for an agenda to be emailed to you. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to, for business owners who, I guess everybody is invited to join or look at the Town of Lyons website.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are in charge. You get to send stuff to whoever you want to send stuff to.
Sure, so what I'm suggesting, what I'm proposing, Eric, is that we could have people sign up so that they could have the agenda sent to their email. So I
Great.
think that could be a simple fix, and on
Yeah.
a Thursday, you could actually have the agenda to your email box. So that's something I've taken note of here. When it comes to the development process, I am very cognizant of how small our planning department is. We have a planning department of 1, is that right? 1. We have a small town, which means we have a small staff, which means we have a small budget. And I know that this person has a code to follow. It's called the Lyons Municipal Code. And there should be a process laid out in the code, and this is what she should be following, or they should be following. Obviously, if there's a lot of back and forth, and it sounds like the code is changing or the rules are changing, it sounds like it's something that we need to take another look at. And we have a commission as well. It's called the Planning and Development Commission. And maybe this is something that we need to revisit and see why are these answers changing? If we have it written down in code, then that should be the answer. So I think that calls for further
changing
investigation.
might not be the fairest word to use. Missed is a maybe better word for it, which does speak to resources, to your point. I can cite multiple examples. I know other people in the room can, of things where they sent it in, they were told, yeah, you're good to go. And then later it was, oh yeah, and you also need to. And I know of a particular instance very nearby that moved a budget by something like $60,000 because it just didn't get noticed. And, you know, we don't have a choice. We have to follow the rules. But that's a really expensive choice.
Sure. We could do better.
Yeah, I'll try to just touch on your 2 points again, the communication. I totally get that. That was one of the big things that I thought should be corrected, but it's not as easy as it sounds on paper. And I say that out of complete respect and understanding of how hard the staff and the mayor worked to get an agenda together. And what I found after being involved with the IGA task force and being following literally every board meeting for the last 2 years, I don't think I've missed one, at least after the fact watching it, is just because there's a topic, and I think Mayor Rogan helped me understand this, just because there's a topic on the agenda doesn't mean there's a decision being made on that topic. It just means there's an issue that had come up and the staff is trying to bring it to the attention of the board so that they can decide, do they take action? And what happens, because of the sensitivity of some of these issues, people go crazy when they see it. It happened very recently. It's happened on the business side, it's happened on the community side. It sounds like an easy fix to just do it a week earlier. We should be able to work through it, but there's some nuances to it that are hard to explain in this setting. The second thing I'll touch on really quickly is the development process. I'll be the first to say I'm not anywhere near an expert on the steps that it takes to start a business or build a business here. But we have some very real, recent case studies. I think the building of this beautiful facility and this property is a great example. And if you have particular cases, you said you have an example just recently about budget change, I think it would be very worthwhile to do a sort of a high-depth case study. What did we learn? Why did those decisions take long? Why did it change the budget? Is it something we could have anticipated? Was it on the development side? Was it on the town side? But we need to understand why those happened, and then we can say, yes, this one we can fix, this one we can't. And sometimes things develop over time. A plan changes, or a regulation changes, or something happens, especially when it takes years for a facility to be built out. It's not black and white. And so I think it's worth doing a deep dive case study on this property in particular and some of the others to understand what the problems have been.
Yeah.
All right, so many thoughts. At Planning Commission, I think we've talked many times about trying to figure out when we could, or Lisa Ritchie, who's the third planner that I've worked with in 2.5 years on the PCDC. She's fabulous. I think she really sees opportunity to simplify and clarify our municipal code, which I think is a great place to start. We just haven't really, as a PCDC, gotten strong direction from the Board of Trustees to do that work. So I think that would be a great place to start. In my day job, I do a lot of work with residential developments. We have a big, finance machine behind us, but I understand the cost of time and work with other municipalities and put that time into the pro forma, and it's significant. I do think there's opportunity as Lyons and other towns adopt the 90-day fast track review process for residential. How can we learn from that to extend that review process 90 days to commercial as well? I heard the director of planning in Greeley last week, Friday, say his goal is to do exactly that. Commit to the 90-day review for capital A affordable residential, but try to get there with everything else. And over time, I think that can happen. There's also promising ideas with AI review of permits and plans that could accelerate that. So, a couple of thoughts.
Eric, can I comment on something?
No.
I mean, I can save the town tens of thousands of dollars with all due respect to doing in this study. And I don't mean personally. But before I do that, I want to thank Chris and Sarah. This facility is phenomenal. And largely it's phenomenal not just because of the sweat they put into it, but what they leveraged to do it. And the important part of that is what business owners in town are doing are leveraging their lifestyle, their savings, whatever it is, to make something worthwhile and valuable in this community. And we are in need of a paradigm shift in this community, that businesses create a vibrant, active, economically valuable community for everybody, not just the businesses themselves. So what we're talking about here, and Eric, I also want to thank you, by the way, because we wouldn't be here tonight without you. And the mayoral candidates should be really scared because if Eric lived in town, he would be running for mayor. what I think we're talking about right now, and why I jumped in, and I apologize, is we're talking about process.
Yeah.
But if you've ever built anything, if you've ever leveraged something strong enough, you have accountability and you have something to benefit from. And in this model here, we lack that.
Yeah.
We don't have a general contractor, if you will, in the middle of these projects where we're all talking about process, that both benefits and is accountable. And until we have something like that, either on staff, in the town, or in some way related to that model, we're talking at one another. Someone's talking about a code and a policy, and someone's talking about a desire and a vision, and no one is pulling that together. So unless there's an ombudsman or somebody that says, I, as part of the town and the business community, benefit and see the benefit and am accountable, we continue to talk to one another. So I offer that up because it is the only way I've seen effective projects get done on time, in budget, and we're all parties in it.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I'll give a little bit of practical color to this before we move on to the next round of topics. And I'll give you an example of in Lyons and then an example of another jurisdiction that's doing this very, very well, in my opinion. In Lyons, we have fences and we have signs. These are two things that you can build in Lyons, among the many, many others. You do have to go to the town of Lyons and apply for a fence permit, and it has to go through a review process with PCDC or the building department, depending on the scale of the thing that you're building. Costs money, takes time. You do not need a fence permit in the town of Lyons. As long as it complies with the regulations on par, you can build a fence up to 6 feet high if it's on certain parts of your property, or 4 feet with permeability, depending on where you are in the floodplain, but it's in the code. So are the sign regulations. Why does one require a permit and the other does not? I'm a business owner. If I build the wrong fence and you come tell me to take it down, that's my problem. I screwed that up. If I hang the wrong sign, you tell me to come take it down, also my problem. I have regulations from the federal government for my liquor licenses, the state of Colorado, the town of Lyons, now with my other location, the city of Boulder, which is a whole nother freaking animal. We're all very used to dealing with regulation. We're used to reading the laws. We're not, I mean, I say this with all the love in the world because I'm a resident in Longmont and I built a thing on my property I wasn't supposed to and I got in trouble for it, but we're practiced in going and finding out what we're allowed to do and what we're not and following the rules. Why are there all these tiny little things that we have to go through that we read the rules, we know we're doing it right, we have to spend money and time to go through the process anyway? So yes, if you want to build a giant thing on a piece of private property next to a river in a floodplain, you should probably talk to the town of Lyons. But if you want to hang a sign on a Main Street business, you should probably just be allowed to do it. Some of these things we can get out of our own way on. We can free up planning time and PCDC time and town staff time. Then come enforce the rules on us. If we did it wrong, yep, totally. That makes sense. I'm used to consequences. We all are. That's the way business works. But there's all these things where we've just applied regulation after regulation after regulation to the point where we're spinning in circles and it doesn't make sense anymore. We've been looking at expansion in the city of Longmont. Candidly, we've been looking at that for years and nothing has happened, so don't be thinking we're jumping ship or anything. If you want to build a new project in the city of Longmont or open a new business, there's a process that you can go through with their planning department where you take your concept drawings, a 2-sheet application, and write down in narrative form to the best of your ability what you're planning on doing. You go in, you schedule a meeting with them, you sit down with the planning department, explain what's on your documents, and then they go, great, we'll get back to you in a week. And in a week, they circulate that document to every department at the city that could possibly have anything to do with it. Fire, police, parking, utilities, you name it, parks and rec, who cares? And they get back to you with a list of everything that could possibly be applied to your project. Not what will be applied to your project, but we might make you put fire sprinklers in. We might make you build a parking lot. We might make you do this. And you walk out of that meeting a week later with a, is this freaking possible or not? Then you go and build the thing and they stick to that. Unless you radically change your plans, they stay within their bounds. And if they screwed up, they help you fix it. So when we're talking about process around here, when we're talking about attracting new businesses, when we're talking about helping the businesses we have grow, there are some things we can do to create a process where we can give people accurate answers in advance. And not the, oh yeah, you're gonna be good, happy-go-lucky at town hall. Here's the super scary. If you can afford to budget for that, then you're gonna be fine, because probably we're gonna apply less restriction. And the difference right now is that when we apply for things, it goes the other way. We get good answers and then it gets badder and badder and badder and badder. Worse and worse and worse. That's terrible language. Is my mother here? She's gonna kick my ass. So moving on from that, this was just one of my examples of, there's a lot of ways to build this process, and we don't need it to be super simple. We just need it to be consistent and predictable and not have to go back to our banks and ask for more money, because sooner or later, they're not gonna say yes. Just the reality. All right, let's move on to fun topics. Where do we want to go next? Let's talk about business development a little bit. We currently don't have a Chamber of Commerce. We currently do not have a tourism organization of any kind. And to my knowledge, other than maintaining a website, the town of Lyons is not spending any money on marketing the town of Lyons to the outside world. I am happy to acknowledge that I'm wrong about that, but that is vast. What's that? I'm wrong? How much? $12,000 on marketing. That is 17% of my marketing budget at Main Stage Brewing. Just to give you a sense of how far $12,000 goes in today's marketing world.
It's nonprofit versus for-profit.
Nonprofit versus for-profit, but one of my questions is, and this is a key question if you're here, is the businesses are all standing up, we're running businesses, we're paying sales tax, we're doing the very best we can with it. As a nonprofit, as a town government, there are massive grants and funding available for marketing. The Colorado Tourism Office alone spends a ton of money and has regular matching grants. The county has grants, the federal government has grants, there's so much money out there for marketing. How can the town government do this better? Because we need help. This is an area where the town can help that we can't do alone.
I can take a stab at this if you like. Yes, thank you to the Colorado Tourism Office for the $12,000 they've granted us. We are really fortunate to have partnerships with state agencies. As you may or may not know, a lot of the federal funding has dried up. We're not too happy with Colorado right now, and there is no grants coming to Colorado. So for us to apply for federal funding at this point in time, that's not happening. So what I would encourage is something that our current mayor has been really good at, is creating and fostering those partnerships with local and regional agencies, whether it's the Consortium of Cities or the Metro Mayor's Caucus or the Denver Regional Council of Government. I mean, I think at a lot of these meetings, you probably learn about a lot of different opportunities that are out there in different municipalities and how they've applied for them and how they've received funding. And I think we have to encourage those partnerships with these local and regional agencies, especially at a time like this when we can't depend on federal funds. So, you know, getting to know your state representatives, whether it's Senator Marchman or Representative Smith, I mean, I have them on my cell phone. I'm sure that Mayor Rogan has them on her cell phone. And if we have a question that we want to ask about funding, we can just call them directly and just say, hey, is there going to be any funding for businesses coming down the line? Which agency should we speak to?
Okay.
So I think that's the route we're going to have to go over the next couple of years, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. When we get more money, we'll spend more money if we can get it. I think I was kind of reflecting on this because there's actually quite a lot of money. We can always do better, right? So that I echo what Tanya said, that we should be looking for more money. But I don't think we should cut short what's being done, because there is an effort to try to do things on what money we don't have. The town spends $55,000 a year on the greenscape for Main Street. Not a huge amount, again, not a total budget, but it's not nothing. We just recently were one of the sponsors for the Old Man Winter to try to bring people in off season. I think there's more of that we can do that doesn't cost a lot of money. we have to get smarter about what we do. We have to get more engagement between the town and the business community of what can we do if we don't have a lot of money? What are the things we can do? What are the other events we can have? The talk that about doing the farmer's market, I think is a brilliant idea to bring people in town. There was a talk about how to clean up dog poop last board session, which wasn't a lot, but it struck me that with what happened in Golden, with the Golden, it was so crowded, people couldn't even walk down the street. I think it's time for the dog days of summer, right? I think there's events we can do. We do the concert series. So there's a lot going on that the town is trying to do with no money. We have a $4 to $7 million, whatever it's going to be, water treatment tank we're going to have to fix. We have crumbling infrastructure. We have stormwater drainage pipes about to collapse. We don't have a lot of money, so we can't just say, hey, let's throw more money at marketing. Granted, to the point, if there's grants, we should do that, but I don't think we should take our eye off the ball of what we're doing that's working and keep doing more, better, faster.
Yeah, I'll just add, you're in the spend money to make money crowd tonight, so sometimes we gotta spend money.
If you have it to spend.
We can have it to spend. We simply have to decide to.
I don't have all the answers. I do know I have a lot of experience with fundraising and putting together public-private partnerships to put a capital stack together to deliver projects around housing and starting a charter school and things like that. I do think there's a high level of urgency around this issue right now because we've really, I think, been handed Sundance Film Festival to us on a silver platter. And it's 10 months away, and it's just, I know there's some people already organizing around that, but what an opportunity for us to build our business community.
Wouldn't it be great if we had a hotel to put those people in?
It would be. I mean, I think, look, I know there's existing relationships with a lot of support from our elected officials at the state legislature, but you know, I have really good relationships with the leadership at the Office of Economic Development and International Trade and Department of Local Affairs. So I would absolutely leverage those relationships to help us figure out what we can do.
Let's talk about those relationships a little bit. We have relationships as a town, largely with CDOT, State of Colorado, Tourism Office, Boulder County, couple others here and there, but those are the really manifest ones. Boulder County manifests itself in the Sheriff's Department and open space. We interface with a ton. CDOT, obviously, we have CDOT running through our town. We can point at any number of these things. We can talk about Corona Hill and open space. We can talk about the Sheriff's Department, the cost increases last year. We can talk about our ongoing back and forth, yay, nay, what the heck is CDOT doing to us on any given day? What is our speed limit? Can we put a traffic light there? All kinds of things. What do you think Lyons town government's relationship needs to be? What's that relationship dynamic supposed to be like? Right now, to me personally, it feels like the state or the county says, we're gonna do this thing this way. And we say, okay, I guess we gotta deal with it and find the budget for it. But we're a strong town. We're not going anywhere. Our representatives at the state and federal level love us. And they've shown up for us when we've had our times of need. Can we change that dynamic? Can we attain control in these relationships and actually dictate a little bit what we need as a town in order to grow and succeed?
Can I go first? Thank you. I'd like to commend Mayor Rogan, who's here today and has spent many an hour on the road, driving to Boulder, driving to Denver. I mentioned some partnerships with the Metro Mayor's Caucus and the Consortium of Cities and thinking of the Denver Council, Regional Council of Government. And that is where we bring our voice to the table. Those partnerships are so key. Those hours you spend on the road, those hours you spend in the meeting, I want to thank you so much on behalf of our community, because that is going above and beyond. But honestly, as mayor, that's what we need. Yeah. Excuse me. A small town like ours, we are mighty, we are strong, but we need to have a voice at the table. And you have to be willing to go out there, and you have to be willing to show up, and you have to be willing to stand up for Lyons and advocate for Lyons and make sure our voice is heard. So thank you for doing that.
I don't have a whole lot to add. It's a little bit of a forced relationship, right? We're forced to deal with CDOT because they own the land that the road's on and they control. I think we've done a fair job of trying to not let them push us around more than we have to, or working with them when we can, like getting the public seating outside of the market. I think was a good step, as opposed to the market having to take on costs to sign a lease. So there are some things we can influence, but at the end of the day, if they decide to put new crosswalks in, they're going to put new crosswalks in, and we just have to try to make sure it doesn't harm what we're trying to do.
Well, I'll push back a little bit. It's within the town's ability to negotiate with CDOT and adopt the highway all the way from the beginning of town all the way through it. We could decide to do that if we wanted to. We could find a way to pay for it, maintain it, and manage it as we see fit. Multiple governments do this where state highways run through their towns. So that's the status quo that they've told us is what is, and that's what we've accepted, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. If we look at Corona Hill, where some of us want to provide direct access to Hall Ranch from downtown, which would be great for tourism, great for access, great for people getting out to our businesses. We can't control what they do on open space land, but sure as shit, excuse my language, sorry, there are children here. Sure as heck, we could build a trail that goes over the river and goes right up to the park's boundary and says Boulder County open space beyond this point, and then see what they do next. We can be as bold as we choose to be. That's a point of view and a personality as a town. And we just need to decide what we want to be. I don't know what you think.
I think you're very inspiring here. No, I think the relationships with all of our government partners are critical. It sucks when nobody has any money. You know, the state is working to cut $1 billion out of the state budget this year. So it just, so in an under-resourced environment, you know, I think the way to get to have a bias for action is to try to find the areas of alignment. Think about a chart that's like impact versus effort, and just try to just chip away at the low-hanging fruit and be really clear about where we want to get. I would have a lot to learn about what we can and can't do as a town, honestly. But yeah, I'd be really willing to learn. And I think those relationships are really, really important.
Some of these questions for me come from understanding what the federal government's doing, understanding what the state budgets are doing to our budget, and recognizing that we're going to have to run a little more nimble and a little more mean. And I mean that in, we're going to have to be a little bullheaded sometimes as a town and say, this is what we need and this is what we want, this is where we're going. And they can come with us or not. But I have a hard time seeing them sending the National Guard in here to stop us from, you know, putting a stop sign in where we want to. Neil's had a somewhat well-known idea around town that the best thing we could do for tourism is put in a big sign on the triangle that says, welcome to Estes. Free parking. And you know what? It's our property. Technically nothing's stopping us. Yeah. I mean, I'll run rolling blockades and slow the traffic down in front of the gas station if anybody wants to join me every Saturday morning. We'll just drive 25 in both lanes and force people to look at our pretty colors. So there's a lot we can do here. And I think, speaking for myself, but also channeling a little bit of what I heard, is we want to see some chutzpah from the board. We want to see some fight. And let's get out and advocate on behalf of the town of Lyons.
All right, next question. What percentage of the budget actually goes towards marketing? So I know we talked about like $12,000.
Well, if it's $12,000, the percentage would be, yeah.
So what about percentage of sales tax that's going to the town? What fraction of that is being applied to marketing?
Is there any additional money other than marketing, other than the grant money being spent by the town of Lyons on marketing?
We look at it more like Doug referred to it. We do things such as provide additional parking, the lights on Main Street,
improving the banners, in the public seating. We look at all of those things as helping to market on Main Street.
Sure.
We don't have to put towards it, except right now what we get from CTO and whatever,
Yeah. So Victoria's answer for those that couldn't hear is the direct spend on marketing by the town of Lyons is grant funding only.
Yeah.
Money that's being spent on marketing by the town government in there, I'm just repeating Victoria's answer for those that can't hear. The things that we are working on for marketing are all of the board's infrastructure projects, wayfinding, parking, et cetera, are considered efforts to help market and make our business community accessible. I'm paraphrasing, but more or less, yeah.
If you look at the budget, without getting us way into the weeds, when I look at the various line items that would fall into marketing, it came out to roughly $170,000, plus or minus.
Sure.
That's staff time, that's the little bit of money we spent. Now, is that enough money for marketing? Probably not. And I totally understand the idea of what you're saying and what you're going for. It comes down to prioritization. And one of the challenges I think that the last board has faced is really focusing on priorities. And it's been, are we spending our time on the right things? Are we spending money on the right things? That's the first thing you do when you come in and look at any business. I don't care any of your businesses. If I come in and look at it, the very first thing I'm going to do is go, where's the money coming from? Where's the money going? And how are you spending it? And I think we have an opportunity to do that within the town and figure out, are we spending the time, the limited time that we have, with 21 employees, are we spending their hours correctly? Are they chasing windmills, or are they actually doing things that are going to move the needle? And that might get us around to talking about, do we buy roads or whatever? But right now, we're just, the reality is we're a long way from flipping a switch and making that happen. Should we be working towards it? 100%, Eric, I totally agree. But I think it's important to understand the realities that are out there today, and maybe some of the inertia that could be out there.
No, full disclosure, I'm as liberal and lefty as it gets, which means my ideas are wildly impractical 90% of the time. So that's totally fine. I don't bring these things up to say we should do this. I just bring them up as an example of something we can aspire to and a direction we can point ourselves. When I look at the role of the town board, and this is kind of the key question that I have, because you guys are going to be the bosses of Lyons, you're in charge, and you control a tremendous amount of our futures in your hands. Like, you have real power over. My personal house is leveraged to secure my debt on main stage. Please don't kill us. My wife will be very, very upset. She loves our house. The town board, to me, has two primary roles at its very core functions. One is to write our laws, establish a direction, understand the code, and deal with ongoing issues. The second role is to give the town staff direction, guidance, and management in order to fulfill what y'all decide is in the best interest of the town. We've had 5 town planners in the last 5 years, rounding a little bit there, as an example. Do you guys feel that the board has been giving good management on a time scale of the last 10 years or so? I don't want to single out this current board because every board has their own challenges. And how would you handle that relationship differently? Are there changes you would make? Keep the status quo? This is the tough question of the night.
Can I go first again? Thank you. I can speak to the last 4 years, and I can also speak to the 10 years post-flood from 2013 to 2023, where we're literally rebuilding our community, our entire town. And I applaud our staff. I applaud all of our boards of trustees who came before us, because that was our priority. Yeah. That was a huge priority. We had to rebuild bridges. We had to rebuild homes. We had to rebuild land. I mean, that was a huge priority of ours. And immediately following that, we went straight into a 2-year comprehensive survey of the entire community to come up with a comprehensive plan, which literally lays out our roadmap for the next 10 to 15 years. So we have set some goals. We do have strategies. We need to refer back to that regularly, especially with our commissions, to review where we're at. And I just want to remind everybody here that the trustees' role is to come up with those laws, as you said. I don't consider ourselves the bosses at all. I don't see this as a grab for power at all. when you said that word, I was trying to think how I would define ourselves. And honestly, I see ourselves more as a facilitator.
Okay.
I don't see ourselves as I don't know where where that impression comes from. I certainly hope I'm not giving that impression.
No, you're not. It's just easy language.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I don't feel like I'm anybody's boss. And so just to really clearly differentiate here between a trustee and staff, yes, trustees have a very big responsibility that weighs on me immensely, where we do have to come up with what's reasonable and rational and affordable and safe, and come up with what's best for our community for the future. We can't think about tomorrow or the next week or next year. We need to be thinking about in 10 years' time or 15 years' time or 20 years' time. We have to have the big vision. And our staff is there to execute those orders. So there's a differentiation there between the two.
Yeah, and I'd rephrase your question a little. I see laws, or municipal codes, all of that as, those are the tactical steps we do after we've decided what it is we're going to do. The role of the town government is first and foremost health and safety. That's the first goal. How we do that, once we figure out what the health and safety issues are, then we write rules and codes and give direction to staff. So I think it's really important, where we maybe have gone south is not focusing enough on really identifying and saying that this is the priority, this is what we're going to spend time on. We're not going to spend time on these tertiary things until this is dealt with in the best way that it can. Easier to say than do, granted, but I think that's the issue. The issue isn't, do we have people? It's, are we focusing the people in the right space? Are we spending our money, our limited money, on the right issues? First and foremost, health and safety. Secondly, economic vitality. Those things go hand in hand, but it's important to say that's the role of the government, not to write laws or write code. That's the tactical activity of the staff after we've made some decisions.
I really see the role of boards generally as kind of more like a policy governance role, where boards set policy, kind of more focused on direct, protect, enable, and set clear goals for staff and hold them accountable to those goals. I do think we put a lot of time into and resources and lots of public engagement into the comprehensive plan. It's part of the PCDC's role to kind of watch the implementation of that, which we do on an annual basis. I think we can probably do a better job of having more communication across boards and commissions about their goals within the comprehensive plan and accountability towards those. But just more communication. And yeah, I agree. I think it's a policy governance role, and we depend on the staff. And to your point around the planners, it is a role that I think has high turnover in many cities and towns, and it's unfortunate. It's an important role, and I hope we can keep going with that.
I agree. Lisa, if you're here, hell yeah. We only have a couple more minutes because I want to make sure everyone can take a restroom break and have a chance to follow up, like scheduled a half-hour break. In a few minutes, we'll be back with Greg and Mariah and Julie to have a very similar conversation again. But I wanted to give everyone some time to follow up with these guys and ask your questions and have a chance to interact. Very important to me. I'll follow up by saying I asked a lot of hard questions and definitely pushed a little bit. I think that's because I know you guys can take it, which is the best ringing endorsement I could give of anyone vying to volunteer an insane amount of their time on behalf of a small group of dedicated and passionate residents who want to harangue you at every possible coffee shop in town.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You guys are doing really good work, and I think everyone here can't thank you enough for stepping up to the plate when asked or when not asked. Perhaps you, like me, had a fit of insanity and decided to do something public. But overall, I started with, we're scared about what's going on in Lyons and our uncertainty and concern. There's not a single business owner that I know or that I've talked to or that is thinking about coming to Lyons that isn't deeply passionate about this community, deeply optimistic about our future here, about the things that we can build, about what this town is right now. Like, don't get past the love that we have for this place right now, but also about what we can build it to be. And my priority tonight was to open this conversation, and some of y'all are going to get elected, and I would love to keep this going as much as we possibly can. A bunch of the business owners in town are here tonight. A bunch more are going to be able to make it tomorrow night. So take the time, get to know us, have these conversations, stay involved, whether you get elected or not. We deeply, deeply appreciate the effort. So thank you. And please, all of you all thank them, because we wouldn't be here without them.
For those who are here.
We'll be back in 20 minutes or so.
Well, thank you to all the trustees who are here currently and who have served previously. Thank you.
Amen to that. They're all going, thank God I didn't have to do this last time. This is so good. Thank you. Please know these are not entirely my points of view.
You didn't let me talk about my vision, Eric. I had a little vision.
You've got a whole
I
public
expected to be at those quarterly meetings.
God.
You can save that for the next.
You better be on the task force.
Thank
Well, now I
you.
have to. Now I feel like I have to put together.
No, I want to give you guys a chance to talk to everybody. I just wanted to air the things. Hopefully this was useful. You've got thoughts.
None of us do our best working from a place of
And for an audience, I'll kind of take a tiny bit.
Absolutely.
It was a scary summer. It was pretty spicy. But y'all handled it well.
That's good. Well, and I forgot to say that I love everything at Lyons, all things Lyons. No, but honestly, I think those meetings, those quarterly meetings are good.
It was a great idea.
How are you? Yeah, and I think we need to start. And the other thing I want to say is I want to start a task force for Sundance, like now.
I'm into that. I'm going to be, you should put me on that, because I'm working part-time in town for health insurance. And we're working.
I'm going to put that right now. I'm taking
How are you? I'm
the
Amy.
first in line.
What would be official
Maybe over at the restaurant? Yeah, I know. You mean so many
Which team is
people
that?
with your mother.
It's mostly their team. I work.
I know. What grade are you in now?
Got it. That's
Are
out
you
of
at
the
Lyons
theater.
Elementary? My son went there too.
It's one of the official companies.
Right, okay.
Harvard, my son went to Harvard.
So you should be on that task.
That's so
Good, you're in. You're on it. Thanks, Sean. Oh, boy. Does Julie feel prepared? It's like when he mentioned he had like talked about topics or emailed us about topics, I was like, what?
Be careful.
Yeah, thanks.
I think I think if you stick to who you are and stick to yourself, that showed in your voice, and I love it.
Did you see me grabbing the mic?
Yeah.
Let me talk.
Yeah.
Let me talk. That's so funny.
And I love how you guys respond with facts and push back.
Yeah.
I'm not. I work in a marijuana company. I get all of this. A little bit weary, older. I go to businesses bigger than I got from and it's not there. It's happening.
All right, how are you feeling?
Just said I'm Irish. I'm always being mad. Get your walk off. You may ask me anything. I don't know if I know the answer. Well, I'm trying to get the kitchen side.
So satisfied,
My
right?
last card. The gal was at the board meeting.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, this is on the ballot. Oh, you have to make every time. I'll get you later when you get to the Lyons. I'm kidding. Saying you can get it from Fox. Commissioner in June. Guy named Rice. Term limited. So it's up for grabs.
I will. So you're up
I've done it. Good.
I literally looked at you this position. No, and so like the whole I also want to also. I were not able to. This is as much of a contribution as I can. And I don't want the value of well-run chambers would be immense, but I don't see a financial value. So I'm not pushing. Well, it's all. No, I'm just waiting for something to shoot me down.
I'd love to answer some of your questions, just
I know the answers to which of these things are
I wasn't thinking that. Here's mine. I mean, it's like, Thursday tax. And I think you kind of this as well. Developer. When we start, walks in. So it does come back in
Either way, I do my kids. And it's oh, you're doing a good job. Keep it up.
That's I know it's state. That's what I said. No, I know we can't change that. So the commercial rate on utilities is higher than residential. It's that's what you're paying for as and so you're only paying
The wastewater.
Exactly.
By charging businesses. Because we're gonna have no businesses in. I just got my bills.
That though,
Do you rate out the one?
that is the number one. Jared and I fought 3 years to try to download the rate. We got like with the first step that is a 0.5. And it's like we need serious. Yeah. And then the assessors. I mean, it's a combination of the state rate and the assessors. And the assessment is I can't sell. I think I can sell the assessment. It's about 900 right now. I sell 300. So.
My whole goal is to it's not inspiring to change how far you can push that happen. And it's your job to take it back to reality of what's legal and what's actually practical. But I personally feel like we have too many ways for me to go with this. Especially when it comes to fights about I don't know, it's practical and big stuff.
Sometimes like, what is he not doing? Or tell me.
There's a bunch of yes.
I got permission. No, yesterday I got the notice. It's in my report going out tomorrow. No, it's done. All of it's going down 5 miles. Just it's going down.
That's great.
It's in my report. They didn't even know.
Well, my thing, I will tell you, my big thing is getting access to it.
See, that's not a. It's not. It's not. But it's not.
No one's
But this is where it comes to us presenting is presented right. I think a bunch of people start to get involved, get on board with it.
We are too but I'm saying the majority of the process. So unless you have a majority,
And the majority of the board doesn't understand the business and that's to have direct access to those trails from
but they have to weigh that against it.
I'm curious to hear that debate. Right now, it's a
Yeah, no,
our whole thing is that our voice hasn't been in this conversation.
it doesn't help. I know. I think our EBC hasn't been.
It's about what, 20 years of getting calls from since it was off, but never proactive.
It is 1 year since I've been here 16 now. 1 year EP as a fire. Since then, I have been, that is, and you look at my survey, EP's on my list. I don't get code. I don't get about pipe work. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Good,
This
good.
is awesome.
This is cool. Is that a band?
No, it's what? It's an insect retreat thing my mom found for me. However, if you look at the bug, it's not
It's
set
a
up.
skull, yeah?
Well, there's a skull, but it only has four legs, not 6.
Oh, see, I'm not
So,
I'm not a bug connoisseur.
Neither am I. I just really like it. It's really fun.
All right, how much time we got?
3 minutes.
If you ever need any help with anything you're doing around into this,
This is all I'm doing. This, I'm doing tomorrow night, but on Monday I fly to Panama.
in the future, like my family's got a long history of helping in stuff like this. So this is really good. Yeah. I'm sorry.
my friends. Let's rock and roll. All right, friends, your Netflix subscription is now auto-playing the second episode of Parks and Rec Lyons Edition. Great, let's do it. All right, let's do it. Round 2 of Pitchforks and Torches, brought to you by the Lyons business community. I mean, I've done all my intros and things. Would anyone like me to repeat the sole purpose of us being here, which is to make an awesome town awesomer? For those of you in the back, there are many empty seats up front. If you want to not listen to a microphone, you're welcome to come forward. Thank you again, Amy, Doug, Tanya. You guys are amazing. We really appreciate you. Hopefully you've recovered and you can address the rest with your therapists in the morning. We have 3 more amazing Board of Trustees candidates. You guys want to take a minute or so and introduce yourselves? And say all the fun things. Are you nervous? Are any of you nervous?
Excited.
Excited? It's excitement? Just keep telling yourself that. Yeah. If you stray across, just reel yourself back in. Everyone here appreciates the work you guys are doing. Have been for years in some cases and are just starting out in others. So thank you in advance. Take a deep breath. Tell us about yourselves. Greg, you want to start? Yeah. Now it is. Let's find out. No, it's not. Here, let me see that one. Here, use this one. There you go.
Okay, I'm Greg Lowell. I've been in town 14 years. Years from New Hampshire. And if you can tell from the accent on the first hand, people said, "You must be from New England." How do you know? So we've been an accent. I've been living with it all my life, so I didn't see the difference. We moved here basically to be near our kids and grandkids. All 3 of my children decided that at some point Colorado is better than New Hampshire, so we moved down here. And I've got, let's see, my youngest son's in Boulder, my oldest son's over here at Lake Valley, and my daughter Amy is here in Lyons. I have retired. The first grandchild showed up, and my wife said we're moving to Colorado. My first reaction was, time out, we've lived here all our lives, all our friends, all our relatives are here. She said, yes, that's what my grandchildren are. So off we went. And as a result, the other kids said, oh, the parents are here, let's procreate. So we now have 6 grandchildren, ages 7 to 14, goes the whole gamut. We moved to Lyons, ironically, because we could afford it. That was back in 2012 before the flood. Back then, even then, things were incredibly expensive around here. It was over $500,000 for fixing up in Boulder at the time. So when we saw the house over in Lyons Valley Park, the first thing I asked the realtor was, I said, are we going to be trouble in that wreck? She said, I think so. And then I looked up at the yellow and I said, can I climb up there? And she said, yeah, I think so. And from that point forward, my wife said, you need to get down on the house and and there we go. So we're quite happy here. I'm a 2-time trustee. I skipped a term. I was on the 2020 to 2022 Board of Trustees. It will go down in history as the only board that we never met in person. Everything was done in Zoom because of COVID.
This is
the only meeting in person was our last session, split session between the old board and the new board. And I created an incredibly awkward faux pas because it's the first time I had met Brandon Dittman, our town attorney, and my first quote to him was, gee, you're shorter than you look on TV. So I don't know. Brandon is a very capable guy, and he didn't take umbrage at that. But I've always been involved in civic volunteering and whatnot. I was that way back in New Hampshire. The first thing I did when I came to Lyons, I said, I looked at the opportunities and joined the Ecology Advisory Board, because back in New Hampshire, I was on my town's conservation commission, which was more powerful than the Ecology Board did, because we actually had statutory authority. We could put a halt to developments if we had a good reason to do so. So I started out with the Ecology Advisory Board, served on the Parks and Rec Commission, any commission they asked me to serve on, I raised my hand and I did it. And so finally in 2020, I thought it was time to go forward and put my hat in the ring for the trustees job and I got elected. And then again in this last term, and so here I am going for number 3. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Hello, I'm Julie Jacobs. I've been in Lyons since 2017, so almost 10 years now. Moved here from Boulder, moved to Boulder from Charleston, South Carolina. Went to Boulder to go to law school, the oldest member of the class of 2014 in CU Law. I'm a psychologist, practiced for about 12 years, joined the Air Force after September 11th, served as a psychologist in the Air Force. Worked at the Citadel as a psychologist, and then I got a little burnt out. It's hard to be a psychologist in the military. So I thought law school would be easier. Post 9/11 GI Bill helped pay my bills to get me to law school. I would have never been able to do it otherwise. We liked Boulder. We love Lyons. We found ourselves coming up here every weekend, house for blues, clean up the grass. That was kind of our lives on the weekend. So at one point we decided, why don't we move to live where we play instead of live where we work? And then we can commute to work and we can have fun in our playground. So we love Lyons. We are here for the music, we are here for the art, we are here for the community, for the funky little vibe that makes this place so special. So I'm also an attorney, I'm also a veteran, I also run a small business. I don't run a small business the way you guys do, right? I don't depend on foot traffic. I'm not retail. I run a consulting firm out of my home. I work with mental health providers, helping them navigate the legal system, navigate the regulations that they operate under, create their businesses, run their businesses in an ethical and risk-managed way. Risk management is my vibe. I love to weigh pros and cons. I love to think about the impact on how many people will be benefited or harmed by a certain decision. I'm also kind of passionate and outspoken about some stuff. And I'm unapologetic about that. That's who I am. And so I am bringing to this role, hopefully, love of Lyons. I've served Lyons since I got here. I joined the LCF within a couple of months, went to Housing and Human Services Commission from there, went to the IGA Task Force from there, PCDC from there. So I have been serving since I got here, and that's what I want to keep doing if you all want me to. And even if you don't elect me, I'm going to keep serving because I have a lot to say and a lot to do and a lot of opinions. One of my main goals here is to give voice to some people I don't think get voice in this town. And I'm very passionate about just making sure that we represent everybody. And I guess that's all I got.
Hi everyone, my name's Mariah. I am so excited to be here tonight as one of the youngest people running.
Yeah, hell yeah. You are the youngest.
So I come to you tonight having been in Lyons for 4 years. I moved to Colorado from Tennessee, where I got a degree in physics, mathematical modeling, and environmental sustainability. So what I love is looking at systems in a big picture way and seeing how all of those systems can work together to support a greater mission. And that's exactly why I'm running for the Board of Trustees, to see how that can happen on a social level. And I don't come to that blindly. I continued education and got a permaculture design certification. And that's what led me to Colorado. I was a farmhand working with Drylands agroecology research. Their demonstration farm is technically in Longmont, but it is just right down the street off Twilight. So I found myself spending a ton of time here in Lyons, and I now live here, and I'm excited to be here and excited to be here for a long time, not going anywhere. And so this will be the longest place that I've really ever kind of lived. I mean, I grew up in Tennessee, but bopped around house to house and college room to college room, and now I'm here. And I hope to bring just a lot of excitement for this next summer in the Lyons Farmers Market. That is my passion project. I spent the last 4 years at Moxie, the one here in Lyons. I was one of the managers. And the last 2 years, I did this farmers market on a small scale in their parking lot with the support of the town staff, the town board, which is exciting. And now it's going to be in Sandstone Park, full-fledged. I also have my own event coordination business that I'm launching this year, and I just cannot wait to get started on all the things. I've thrown my net far and wide. And part of that is working with the bee city that Lyons has become. I am working for Simply Bee Conservation. We're expanding pollinator space in neighborhoods, in community gardens, in municipal green space. And so we're partnering with the town to make sure that we hit all of those requirements and get everybody's hands in the dirt and get them excited about bees. So that's me. We'll see what happens.
Thank you all. Thanks for running. Thanks for serving. Thanks for doing all the things you're doing. You're already giving back to the town, which is amazing. There's a lot of love in everything that you just said for this town. You guys clearly deeply love this town. So I guess a great place for us to start is, if you could think of one underutilized resource that we have in Lyons that would help grow this town, bring more visitors, bring more tourism, what would that be? And the harder part, how do we do it?
Well, the main thing that I'm really excited about this year is the fact that not only are we a bee city, but Lyons is an official creative district. We all know how much art exists in this beautiful town, and I just am so excited to see what this organization can do with all of those talented individuals, using their network, their reach, their marketing budget to expand just tourism and support all of those members.
This is less a resource than an opportunity, but Sundance is just I cannot get that out of my head in terms of what we can do to bring those activities to this town. And we're way behind, we're behind the ball. You know, you see Lyons talking about all these different venues that are going to be doing things. Like, where can we do film festivals? Where can we do events? How can we utilize the places that we have in this town? And this is, it's a short-term thing, it's not long-term, but holy mackerel, what an opportunity in the middle of winter, our hardest time for everybody in this town. Every business struggles. And so if we can jump on that bandwagon, and I don't know, one of the things I think we don't do, and I know I don't want to belabor this point because you hit it a lot in the first round, but benefiting from the wisdom of the business owners in this town is something that we must do. And it's going to mean that we have to work harder to build some bridges and to get input from people. And it's not sending an agenda out, and it's not sending a survey out, it's developing relationships. An ombudsperson, I had that, someone mentioned that, and I was in my notes, like, how can we have someone who streamlines things and makes it easier for businesses to benefit from whatever opportunities present themselves, especially in this incredibly challenging climate that we're going to be facing over the next few years.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, ombudsman. I've often thought about that. I'd say that would be a great go-between between business and citizens and the board and staff. You're asking about underutilized resources?
Yeah, just in general, like if you look at the town, the environment of the town, the mountain, the trail, the river, the street, the business, the whatever the thing is that you get excited about, but for some reason nobody's talking about. How do we do that thing better?
We've definitely got a vibe here in Lyons, and we're in the off-season now, I guess you'd call it now. It's really hard for your businesses to stay solvent during this time, I know, although I love your running a pizza.
It's exactly as hard as you think it is.
I think it behooves all of us to do as much as possible as we can business here in town. Restaurants, some of the shops. I just think that we need to pull more people into town. I'm not sure, maybe somebody could tell me, but I'm not sure how many people actually come to Lyons in the wintertime from someplace else. To go to a restaurant, to go to a gift shop, to come to an event. When we have things like Old Man Winter, that draws a ton of people in, the Christmas parade as well. But in a February, January, do people come for our restaurants?
I mean, I'll answer for myself. The answer is absolutely yes. I would wager in the winter something like 50 to 60% of our business is people from outside Lyons, and in the summer it's probably 70%. So yes, they come. But they come from Longmont and Boulder, they come from Estes, they come from Nederland, they come from Loveland and Berthoud. They don't come from Tulsa unless they happen to be coming by, and that's unpredictable. It's not something I can market for or build for. We have an opportunity to be a regional powerhouse is the best way I could state that. So that's my answer to your question. And I would imagine if you having asked all the business owners a bunch of different questions, if you ask them any question, you'll get a bunch of different answers. What color is the sky today? Well, I'll tell you something different. Like fundamentally, we're not the same entity, but we absolutely rely on people from out of town. We also rely tremendously, especially the brick and mortar businesses. The wedding businesses are a little different, but we rely tremendously on our local residents too. I'm digressing, but there are a strong group of people who come out for music all summer long, to A-Lodge, to Oscars, to Main Stage, festivals. And then in September, they go, see you next year. And in May, they come back and they go, hey, it's so good to be back again. And I'm like, I can see your house, man. You're right there, dude. Where have you been? So there's something about our community where we have an opportunity to activate ourselves too. And that's one of the reasons I was asking that question.
Well, the thing is, I think everybody on the board will agree with me now, and everybody on staff as well. We need to have a hotel. And whether it's that vacant lot downtown or whether it's something closer, maybe, we need to have a place where people can come and they can spend a weekend, make it a destination. I don't know what it's going to take to get the hotel off the ground.
Well, let me ask this then.
It's a communication on more taxes on hotels. That was not very.
Well, let me ask this then. In 5 words or less, because I want to keep us moving a little bit. Why don't we have a hotel in town right now? The briefest possible answer you've got.
Well, I'm not the person putting my on the building hotel. But you remember correctly, we had the development plan for the hotel was all taken care of in 2020. It was ready to rock and roll, and then COVID hit. All the commodity prices went through the roof. All the interest rates went through the roof, and there it is set. We are in communication with the two people who are putting it forward, hoping for better things, hoping to hear a better report in 2026. We'd love to see it get off the ground. It's ready to rock and roll. We talk about a business incubator for the town. You put 79 rooms in a hotel, and they're going to do something, right? In between the weddings. I always use the story of when my daughter got married here. I had to rent a bus to shuttle people into Boulder. And my first thought was, how much money is leaving town to go to Boulder, to pay the lodging tax, to pay the sales tax there, what could be kept in town?
So, yeah, go ahead and answer. Do you know why there's not a hotel in town?
Financing has been a BITCH.
I think it's really practical.
Have the kids gone to bed? You can just say it out loud now. I think they're all.
No, I mean, my understanding is the intent is 100% to move forward, and that these are local folks who want to do something that's going to benefit the community, and timing sucked. I can say sucked, right? The kids are gone.
Yeah.
All I have is speculation here. I don't know enough on this topic. I can just assume that even though Essex is close, there's not a lot that people are doing in the winter as of right now. Like this space is amazing, but it's brand new, so we need to showcase it a little bit more. The space at the Farmette has been relatively new, but there wasn't a lot of indoor space before that, and there wasn't a lot of outdoor activity to be had unless you were going to go further up the mountain. So it probably just wasn't a hot spot for a long time.
Hey,
For sure.
Eric, I know you're not running, but why do you and the businesses think that it hasn't been accomplished?
I'm trying to decide if I've had too much beer to answer this question.
Can I answer it?
I don't think the town of Lyons and the current boards for the last 4 to 6 years have gone far enough to make up the difference in financing and infrastructure costs to make the hotel project feasible. I think we've lost 6 years of sales tax and lodging tax revenue that could have come out of that hotel by not being willing to put the town's ass on the line too. That's my candid answer.
What do you think?
And this is why I said no to you, Neil, earlier, is I'm not wanting to get this into a public forum and debate and stuff. So I'm going to move us along a little bit.
I would invite the owners of the property, the developers here to answer that question.
That's a great answer. And you know what? Feel free to reach out to them because I would guess that they would have some really interesting answers of their own. And I don't know what they are. I'm saying interesting we would all learn something by asking them these questions. But we can, as a community, do more to make these projects happen. And that includes businesses like mine stepping up and advocating for how much it would mean to us to have a business like that around. It would be a massive change in the way my business operates. Massive. Fundamentally change the nature of my business. Well, I clearly wasn't on the Economic Fatality Commission. Moving on a little bit, though. Yeah, sure.
So you understand we have an urban movement for that covers the urban authority district, who has committed some serious funds to the hotel based on the tax increment financing. We're gonna give them, I don't know what the exact figure is, I don't have it in my head right now. Is it 17 million?
No, 3 million of their 16.
3 million, so that's $3 million that could otherwise go into the tax coffers that the town's putting forward to help get this hotel off the ground. And did 402 Main Street, same deal, we've got to deal with them, we've got to deal with Neil's St. Frank Market. So the problem with the URA right now is that it's underwater. And it's basically because we have a large vacant lot in town, which used to pay some overcoming taxes. The buildings there weren't great, but at least we got some property tax revenue out of it. 402 Main Street burned down, so that's just being taxed as a lot. We're hoping that once 402 Main gets built, and once the new assessment, the new assessment for this comes in, that's going to raise the tax, the assessment rates rather.
As everyone who's currently paying property taxes, we're stoked for this assessment to come in.
All right, next item.
But that's not a town issue, to be very clear. The town has no control over our property taxes. It just changes their income from it, but we have no say over it. That's county and state, so cost of doing business. But Greg, you brought up a couple of interesting things as you were talking a little bit earlier. You talked a little bit about the Old Man Winter thing, which the town sponsored. You guys mentioned shuttling people around town and shuttling people in and out of wet venues. One of the things that I know that I see on Main Street is that there's a tremendous amount of visitorship to the town of Lyons that goes directly to Bone Park and directly over in Johnson Park and does not provide any sales tax revenue, does not provide any economic benefit to the town. And as a matter of fact, it's probably a cost if you started to break it down on the parking enforcement and maintenance and all the things we have to do in order to provide those parks for a lot of out-of-town visitors. How do we change that? How do we take advantage of that resource? Because it's happening right now. It's untapped.
Well, as somebody who just recently applied for a special use permit to use Sandstone Park, I know that there are application fees that these events need to fill out, and then there's impact use fees based on the number of attendance, and that I imagine goes to the town. And I was at the board meeting where they reviewed the impact of Old Man Winter, and I heard the amount of money that came in from the parking fees. And so, you know, maybe as a local, we like to roll the dice on those, but you know, people from out of town definitely don't, and they do pay those parking fees. So I think they are being utilized. I think, if anything, maybe underutilized in the position of visibility.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question because it's always really great to see the parks fill in the summer and to see people there and to see all the activity that's going on. But, you know, they're coming in with their picnic baskets full, right? And they're coming in and they're not necessarily stopping in town. So creating events, creating markets, creating things that visually will appeal to somebody as they're driving through town to get to a park. Like, you've had those markets at Main Stage, and you know, they're regular and the people know when they're happening and they drive by and they're like, oh, there's a little tent. Let's pull over. So, you know, for the town, and I don't know the answer of what the town can do to incentivize those things or to make it smoother or to make it easier, but that's certainly something we could look at. How do we get eyes on the businesses as they're driving through so that maybe on the way out of town, they're going to stop and grab a drink or buy some earrings or whatever the case may be.
I tend to look at these things very simplistically, and my thought always was that, you know, what if you put on every windshield of every car that entered Ballroom or VJ Park? What if you put on a, you know, get a 2-for-1 at Main Stage, or you get a free ice cream cone at Dairy Bar? You know, just little things that can be done to incentivize people to come to some of the businesses. Because as you say, they show up, they've got their coolers, they get their picnic baskets. They're not going to stop the lunch at any place because they've already eaten. At the end of the day, you know, they're all worn out from the sun and the water. They're just going to get in the car and go home. But if you can compel them to stop at some place, and that's really up to the businesses because we can't do it as a town. We can't give preferential treatment to Main Stage Pizza, for example, by passing out pamphlets there. So, you know, with the permission of town staff on the Parks and Rec Department, you know, hire a kid for $20 and have them go there and put the chips on the window. So that's an idea.
I like your language along compelling people to do things. I'm a big fan of physically compelling people to do things. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the sense of the town owns a bunch of blank land on the eastern side of town. We have some utility buildings sitting out there, which is great. But the land is otherwise unused. There's nothing stopping us from buying a couple of shuttle buses. Craig recently bought some from Telluride. They say Galloping Goose on the side, and rolling them right along through town, stopping at the parks, stopping along the Main Street businesses, and then taking them back to their cars, which puts them right in front of all of our businesses, and they have to do it in order to get back to their vehicle. There's plenty of ways. The things that you mentioned are things that my business can do to go and market, and we do some of those things. We go out and we market on social media like crazy. We print flyers, we hang things around town. We're after that already. That's our cost. The question here is, what can the town do to do these things on our behalf? How can the town create systems and processes in order to make these things happen in the first place? So that's the only pushback I'll really give you on that one, is just, we're on it. We're trying as hard as we possibly can. But the town has resources they can put towards these things. The town can charge for that shuttle and make a profit on it if it wants to. It can charge for parking. Lord knows we need more parking in this town. That would also provide parking for all of my employees. They could park out there and get shuttled to my restaurant. You can tackle a whole bunch of birds with that one stone. I heard Victoria making all kinds of noises over there.
We don't own any land east of town. There's,
Well, let's find some.
it's private.
Anyway, so these are some of the ideas that occur to us. And part of the purpose tonight was to share some of our ideas with you guys and vice versa. So lots of things we can get after. I talked a little about parking. We didn't get into this with the first session. If you guys have thoughts on this, feel free to post them and share them later. But there's a lot of conversation about affordable housing in Lyons, in the county, in the country, such as it is, such as it ever will be. The world is growing. Affordability is hard. It definitely came up in the survey answers that came back from the businesses. We are as concerned about housing as anyone else is in this town. And I think that may come as a surprise to some people, but we are desperately interested in it. One of our key interests, though, is workforce housing. Lyons is leading the county in affordable housing by the technical definitions, and massive applause to the last 15 boards that have kept this a priority and made that happen. Thank you very much for that work, because it's why I have a fascinating and interesting and somewhat challenging staff to work with. They're brilliant people. But we need workforce housing in this town, because we are starting to see this gulf between the affordable housing and the wildly unaffordable housing. And the middle is slowly falling out of our market. What does that process look like to you? What are your concerns on this front? What are your prioritizations? Where do you come from on this? How about it?
It's one of my most important priorities, and it's not always a popular priority, but I believe, just as you said, it is part of, we talk about priorities for this town, and we talk about economic vitality, and we talk about sustainability of businesses. Workforce housing is part of that. Attainable housing that regular people can live in is part of that. If we hadn't bought our house right after the pandemic started in 2020, when everything had tanked and I could get a VA loan and I could get a low interest rate, we would not be able to afford to live in this town. And we are not poor people. We are regular people who work hard. And there are so many people in this town who are spending 40%, 50% of their income just to live here so that they can work in these businesses and sustain them. And so I agree that when we talk about affordable housing and we focus on what exactly does that mean and what parameters, no, we just need housing that people can live in, regular people. And how do we do that? We find ways to incentivize creating, I don't know, mixed use. If you're going to develop something, how about put something residential upstairs that's a small one-bedroom apartment that's just affordable by the fact that it's a small one-bedroom apartment. No one is dictating the affordability of that. How can we make the Eastern Corridor work for us? How can we make sure that any development that happens in this town has some kind of incentive to make it a place for regular people to live? We should be home to a diverse group of folks who can work here and play here and live here and create here. And that's one of my, you might be able to tell, kind of passionate.
Good.
So, as a young person, it is incredibly hard to find affordable housing in Lyons, even in the affordable housing development. And I'm somebody who was a manager of one of the businesses, and it was still incredibly difficult to figure that out. And I don't know that I would live in this town if it wasn't for word-of-mouth opportunities. And so with that, what I've been learning as I continue to try to educate myself about what's currently on this board's agendas, as I just listened to a fascinating conversation about the additional dwelling units and trying to reduce some of the restrictions around that, fast track some of the residential planning development. I know it's probably really hard for businesses in the commercial planning development, but as far as residential development, they are working on that fast track, and I believe that those ADUs are going to create opportunity for people who want to work at Main Stage, people who want to work at Moxie, for people who want to work in the arts and at those galleries, and maybe aren't making, bukus of money to buy a house, but would be able to rent an ADU. So I'm hopeful to see that come to fruition with our passionate residents.
So let me ask you the question, Eric.
Yeah.
Is not having housing in Lyons an impediment to you hiring people?
It's definitely an impediment to retention, of staff. My kitchen manager lives in Fort Collins right now because that's where he can afford to live, and he commutes to Lyons every day and loves his job. We're paying him certainly a living wage, but it is not feasible for him to live in Lyons. And sooner or later, he'll give up on the hour commute and stop working for us.
So I just had to look this up. I looked at some facts and figures when I was getting ready for this, and we had the Housing Futures Plan in 2023 that showed that 90% of the people who work in Lyons live elsewhere.
Yeah, it tracks.
93% of the people who live in Lyons and work elsewhere and leave town. There's only 53 people in 2023. There's only 53 people who were both employed in Lyons and lived in Lyons. So I would like to accommodate everybody in this town. The problem is it's a physical impossibility. We're surrounded by protected open space. We have the Temperamental River running through the middle of our town. It's a floodplain. In terms of percentage of affordable housing, good Lord, you know we have the highest percentage of affordable housing on front range communities. And once 224 sewer gets done, and BCHA, Boulder County Housing Authority, is talking about 4 more over in Summit, we're going to be at about 11%. And you go into Longmont, which seems to put 100 apartments a day into that town, there's still only 6% affordable housing. All those apartments they're building, they're all market rate. There's one exception. There's one on Upper Main Street. I think there's 325 units they just finished there. When we were talking about making housing as one of our priorities back in our January workshop, prior to that, housing had been right up there at the top. But at some point, we had to realize we can't do much. We can't devote so much of our energy to housing when it's almost an impossibility. Mayor Pro Tem Williams described it aptly. She said, putting affordable housing in this town is like pushing the rope. There's no room, there's no money to do it. The Prop 123 money for affordable housing that the state had, that was cut last year. It's going to be cut again. There's no big grants coming down. I think Summit Housing is probably going to be the last big development that you see in town for affordable housing. Now, we can do things like infill. We can let people turn single families into multi-families. We've got, I think by last count, we've got 15 ADUs in town that people are putting in their backyards. I don't necessarily think that's the answer to affordable housing, because a lot of these ADUs are basically grandma and grandpa type of places. But they do take a burden off the housing, like maybe I'll put an ADU in my son's backyard and then I can sell my house in Lyons and somebody else can buy it. The problem also, Eric, is it's a supply and demand. This is a very, very desirable community. You cannot manipulate prices. It is what it is, unfortunately. Like I said at the beginning when I was introducing myself, we moved here because we could afford it. I wouldn't be here. As Julie said, she wouldn't be here either. If we'd waited just 2 years, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I mean, we bought our house in Longmont in 2015 because we couldn't afford to be here. Like straight out.
I think that part of what we have to do is to dream big and to make it a priority, and to say we can't do it. I disagree with that. There are infill opportunities. There are opportunities in the Eastern Corridor. There are opportunities I know 3 or 4 men didn't choose to do residential upstairs, but some people did. And so to just say it's a foregone conclusion that we have enough, we don't need more and we can't do more, is not a position that I can get on board with. I believe that we look for creative solutions. 100%. Make it easy to make a single family home a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex. ADUs are vital. My mother lives in one. If it wasn't for an ADU, she wouldn't live in this town, and I couldn't help take care of her. These are the things we need to do. We need to take away artificial barriers. We need to take away parking requirements that are meaningless. We need to take away requirements for lot sizes that are not helpful. And we're doing a lot of these things. And if we don't do it, the state's going to do it for us. And so if we want to have control over how we develop this town and over what happens, we need to take control over it. And we need to do the right thing before the state dictates what's going to happen, because they're already doing that. And luckily, we've already done some of the things they're going to dictate us to do. So let's be proactive and let's try to be creative. Maybe there isn't an answer. And maybe we can't have affordable housing for everyone and we can't be everything to everybody. But maybe we can be home to a few more people who are working class folks who just want to live in this beautiful town and have a right to.
Yeah. Very well said. I think the key of what you said is that we can't be everything to everyone. We are doing very well on affordable housing. We need to do just as well on workforce housing. We need to do just as well as protecting the character of Lyons. We need to do just as well in making sure that we have opportunities for everyone, which does include the multi-millionaire folks that want to move from Boulder and sustain our tax base. Don't get me wrong, my business relies on them ordering pizza 7 days a week just as much as it relies on my staff. So this all cuts both ways. But I bring this up mostly to make sure that the business community's thoughts are involved in these conversations around affordable and workforce housing, because they have a strong impact on us. And we do care too. This is probably the one election topic this year that we're seriously invested in, and the residents are also seriously invested in at the same time. Moving into other subjects a little bit, I do want to touch on some of the things we touched on in the first panel too. Our permitting process is complicated and difficult, and I certainly had some conversations during the break that I learned a couple of things here and there, but it's challenging. Everyone knows that. How do you guys look at that? How do you look at what we can do to simplify, or what we can do to assure or create predictable outcomes for people who are looking to bring businesses to Lyons? Where's your head on this?
Yeah, so I love tackling this problem in this like strategic thinking brain. And I love listening to what the first round had to say about, PCDC looking at, what Longmont did and like simplifying and clarifying a process so that there isn't like an, oops, I forgot this one. There is a lot of information that lives on the town website. It's not the most intuitive. It's difficult to navigate, and I think with all of the technological innovations that exist, with all the creatives that live in this town, even could help revamp that. Think of like a few people that come to mind to even help with that.
Volunteer them now.
Yeah,
this is a great opportunity to volunteer other people in our public service.
And so, yeah, I love listening to, how we can especially, stack these functions, learn from others. Even as we were looking and I was hearing about the IGA process and hearing that Longmont was one of the municipalities that had something similar to us, and was the only one that was similar to us. What else are they doing? Because they're small. They're bigger than us, but they're a small town. Like who else can we learn from? Who's another small town we can learn from in order to just streamline this process a little better and put this overarching vision on the process. So it's like, hey, I want to do this thing. Here's the steps. Here's what it might cost you. And I love the sending it around, seeing who would have feedback for that up and coming business.
I agree. We need to make the right thing easy. We need to make it easy. We need to take away regulatory barriers. We need to make it as easy and smooth as possible for these things to proceed. The fast track stuff for residential is great, but how can we mimic that? It is my understanding that there is a new sort of online process for some of these things. I hate AI and I hate all things AI, and I have to say I agree with what Amy said earlier. There's probably a way to use that evil technology to make this easier. So can we harness technology in some way? How do we got a very small force here. How do we multiply that force? How do we find some ways to create efficiencies in the system? Because at PCDC, we hear the stories of these folks who have been trying for so long and all the hoops they're jumping through, and we can't make it harder. We have to do everything we can to make it easier. And if that means harnessing technologies and software and looking at what other people are doing and how they're making it work with so few resources, that should be an absolute priority for this board and every board moving forward.
I think one of the issues that you may be referring to is continuity. You could probably win a beer from somebody if you could ask them to name the last 8 town planners that we had in 6 years. We've got a good one now, Lisa Ritchie. She's very good. Prior to that, we had a number of either planners or planner 2 positions that stepped in to be planner 1 because the other planner left. My opinion is that there are times when we appear to get planners who are just looking at Lyons as a stop along the way to something bigger. So I hope that we're gonna have Lisa for a long time and that she's gonna help smooth the process out. In terms of the actual process, I want to point to Betsy and Mike here because when they were putting up their pole barn at the farmette, it was an incredibly convoluted, difficult process for them to put up a pole barn. And as a result of that, that board that I was on ended up streamlining the process. So if you're gonna build one pole barn, it's gonna be easier. But yeah, I think that's a problem. It's getting the right personnel in place and getting streamlined processes going.
So I would just add to piggyback onto that, the personnel, we can't really control that. We can try to retain them, so God helps, please. But if we can create processes that are solid, then the individuals who are in those positions don't become quite as important. Of course, they are important, but maybe if we create a process, then that inability to retain someone for a long time might not be as big of a challenge. But here's something that this is here for.
That's the 3rd or 4th Lisa shout out tonight for those that are keeping score. We dig Lisa, for sure. I mean, one of the questions I asked earlier is, the continuity on the town government side is extremely important. One person responded to our business feedback with asking if we could shift the board to 4-year terms instead of 2 in order to create the opportunity to learn, get good at a job, and then actually execute on it, which takes a minute. Town government's complicated. We appreciate those that try. This stuff's hard. I'm not specifically asking, do you think that's a good idea? But where do you think the board's role is in that kind of continuity? Where do you think the town staff's role is in that continuity? How do we manage that? How do we build a better system? Because this turnover there's no way to look at it other than systemic at this point, because it is an ongoing issue in multiple departments.
In terms of continuity, we do have some positions for folks that have been there a long time. Victoria, I don't know how long you've been here, I've been keeping track.
16?
The Parks and Rec and Public Works Director's been here more than 20 years. Kim has been here since God created Earth, I think.
She's not that old. I'm going on the record.
No, she's not that old. It was just since he created Lyons.
It's really not the board's responsibility to ensure continuity. It's really up to the town administrator to make sure that the people she puts in place will be here for the long haul. I can't blame her for the planners. There were some who weren't so good. There were some who were absolutely wonderful. And as I say, they were just on their way to something bigger. So I don't really think we have a role in it. Back to your original point about the 2-year terms, that's a state statutory rule. We can't change it because that's the way the state operates, boards of trustees.
I looked it up. It's not.
What's that?
It's not. I looked it up.
You know this?
Yes. But we can change it.
Well, anyways, so my point was, after I left after my first term, I looked at all these people going out the door who had an incredible amount of experience, far more than I did, and thinking to myself, oh, great, now we're just going to put 7 more people in there. Probably 5 of them are going to be learning anew. So, yeah, that's an issue. Okay. You suck your pot. I'd like to see 4-year terms. Staggered.
Staggered is exactly right.
Staggered, for sure.
The idea that the entire board and mayor turn over all at the same time feels insane to me. How do we all learn? How do we get up to speed quickly enough? And certainly we'll have a couple people who are incumbent and stay on, but man, we could do something different that would be I just think it's a huge benefit to this town to have that institutional knowledge that stays on longer terms, staggered terms, whatever we can do, whatever we have the power to do as a town, I think would be huge.
Here's the super candid reason. Every time there's a new board, I take a break for 6 months because I don't have to worry about anything happening.
Right.
It's probably not great, but it's honest.
It's hard.
I see the Board of Trustees' role as helping to weave this governmental web between, town staff and residents and business owners. And so, we were talking about like whose responsibility is it to do this or to do that and bring this and that. Like the Economic Vitality Committee can only advise so far if the board isn't sharing with them expectations and ideas that they want feedback on. And like, here's this agenda item that comes up, activate these boards, all of them, even if it's not any of their business, activate all of them and let that branch out so that those committees, those boards can reach out to their community and then bring a really educated opinion to the board. And so I think it's up to the board to be sharing this, not just on the town website, not just on email. Again, touching back on, technological advances, there's like that text my gov people can sign up for, and we could utilize something like that to text all of our board chairs when something happens. And, obviously we all want a Chamber of Commerce to return. But until that happens, the Economic Vitality Committee is the best we have. And how much sit-down conversation are we having with them as a board to say, this is what I want to see from you, this is what I want to hear about from the business community, like where is that two-way communication happening, Communication is such an issue at large, and how can we start to amend that here, with the role of the board activating committees, with the board assisting town staff and streamlining processes, making all of this jargon so much more simplistic and accessible to the common person. And I think that's the role that I see the board in.
I think that's a great way to think about it. Let's talk infrastructure. Our infrastructure is not crumbling, but we have some really serious hurdles in front of us. We do literally have a piece of town that's crumbling. We have a wastewater treatment plant that's on a couple of toothpicks, and it's got a full-size stool, so that's a problem. And yes, that is fun. No one laughed. That's just so awkward. Thank you.
Too soon.
Too soon? I really hope it's too soon and not right now. We have a lot of different approaches being talked about on dealing with these things. Certainly taxation is one of the key tools that any government has in order to fund things. We have the ability to raise sales tax revenues as a way to pay for things. We have the ability to write grants and go get state, federal, and more funds in order to help fix these issues. I would imagine, not being in our town government, that it's going to take a little mix of everything in order to pull this off. But knowing a little bit about what I pay in taxes and in utility bills, knowing what some of the other businesses are paying in BOD surcharging, in permit fees, and in compliance in order to bring new structures and developments. There's a whole giant section of downtown that would be almost impossible to build with what we know now. I didn't build anything on 446 Main because of the stormwater drainage issues, which now have been somewhat resolved based on the High Street project, but I wouldn't have built then because it would have been massively expensive and on me. We need a way to solve these issues that doesn't involve taxing our businesses into oblivion, because otherwise we're going to end up with a really perfect system and no one living in it. How do we get there? What do you guys see as a path forward? This is the toughest question I've got tonight, and I can't wait for some of the answers on this one tomorrow.
So I've been thinking specifically about about the wastewater treatment plant and this idea that I shared earlier of stacking functions, right? So thinking of this as this like infrastructure issue, but also as an environmental issue, but also how can we utilize the surrounding resources, not just in Lyons, but in surrounding counties. And I think about, CSU being a land grant university and all the people that are doing really innovative things and environmental work up there. Is there a way that we could collaborate with CSU in some capacity to say, here's our infrastructure and environmental issue, bring your professors doing a research study in to do some innovative reform here and really build it out in a different way to expand capacity for the sludge load. And with that, then, it's a really nerdy way to bring people into town, but it puts us on the map as like doing something innovative and crossing streams with things and that's outside of just taxation, but utilizing again people and their innovative brains and not just the dollars that they spend all of their hard-earned time earning.
Wastewater tourism has to be the best idea for like a really long time. It's genuinely a great idea though. It's a good idea.
Creativity, and that's actually what we need with something like this. This is kind of an intractable problem, and it's really hard, and it has to be sort of an all-of-the-above solution. How can we get creative? And can I just say how exciting it is that we have a young person like this with this kind of creative energy, thinking about we need to step That's the kind of stuff we get. We get these ideas that no one is going to think about, and it's. When you think, what are the priorities of town? Infrastructure is always one of them, but it's easy to identify the problem, and it's so hard to identify the solution. But trying to find innovative ideas and people who are going to think about things that are beyond taxation and are beyond, obviously look to whatever state grants we can get. How can the state help us? How can the feds help us? How can we make this an emergency to some extent and get some help? But also, how can we just get creative and figure out what to do about these problems that are going to be here forever? Because when we fix the current crumbling thing, the next crumbling thing is going to happen. My house is 100 years old. Shit's crumbling all the time, right? This town has a lot of crumbling things.
So you talk about creativity. I'd like to give props here to Rainy Environmental, who's helping to keep that wastewater treatment plant together with baling wire and twine. If you walk by there in the morning, you know how bad it smells. The odor control system is jelly right now. It's working, kinda. The UV system, which sterilizes all the bad stuff before it gets dumped into the river, that's on its last legs. The one that's talk about costing money, the centrifuge, which dewaters all the waste so that we can then truck away the dry solids, hasn't been working properly. It may not be working properly today. They did the best they could. But that needs, a new system needs to be put in. You're looking at somewhere between $5 and $10 million for that sewage treatment plant. We've got 1.8 million that we got with the settlement from Honeywell. We got another 300, and I think another 325 for the sale of the Apple Valley Water Plant. That all goes into the water and sewer fund. That can be used for the repairs on it. Beyond that, we're probably going to have to take out a loan or maybe bond it. I don't know what the bond rates are now, but that's a possibility. We're going to have to talk about that sewage treatment plant goes down. We're in deep kimchi. Nobody, first of all, we're going to have to truck away everything that gets flushed down the toilet. If the system's not working right, you don't have a river anymore. Nobody's going to come to Lyons and stick their feet into a dirty water on a summer day. So that's priority number one. By the way, thank you guys for cleaning the grease traps because that helps the plant work more efficiently. Infrastructure is going to take money, one way or the other. It's either going to have to be bonded or loans. Either one is going to be reflected back in your tax rate. We had suggested.
Whose tax rate?
Credit for it.
Whose tax rate?
Who's the current trustee said that.
Whose tax rate is it going to be reflected back in?
What's that?
My utility tax rate as a business, which is higher than residents, or into our general tax rate? Who's paying for this?
It would come back on your tax rate, the town tax rate. We would take out a bond or a loan. we come back on the top tax rate. The county has no stake in it, it's our system. Likewise, this stormwater drain that's held up with old car parts, it's coming down from Steamboat Valley. It's been cobbled together for years. We continue to cobble it together. I think we're putting another $500,000 into it basically to prop up the worst parts of it. Second Street's a mess. You know, the town operates 24/7. This isn't just something you can put up and then expect that it's gonna last forever. All of these things need to be repaired over a period of time. So there's no easy answer to any of this. You have some creative ideas that may have some merit. I applaud that. But in the final analysis, everybody needs to flush the toilet. Everybody needs to get water out of the faucet. And people need to be assured that the next storm that comes along with this north water main out here, the storm water main is going to collapse on. And some of it runs right over the high in Main Street. So.
Yeah, these are serious issues. I promised all the folks that we'd be done at 9:30, and it's 9:30. So, well done. I know, we could go all night on this. Thank you all so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. Spend more time with our candidates. Ask them your questions, make your issues known, push for good answers, bring great ideas to the conversation because we need them. Thank you all for coming. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. More peeps. Yeah.
Holy guacamole.
You also slipped cross streams into that wastewater thing, and I thought that was absolutely hysterical.
So your ideas do have merit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They have that merit, they do have merit.
Thank you so much.
So don't.
I appreciate that.
You did great, dude.
Thanks.
You really did.
Sweating for